Welcome back to the panel discussion, Raising the Bar in Government IT Using Hybrid Cloud, sponsored by Red Hat on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guests today are Pam Dyson, the CIO of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Joe Klimovich, the CIO of the Department of Justice, Michelle Sparrow-Walker, the Acting Director of Systems and Integration Office at the Department of State, Steve Graywall, the Deputy CIO at the General Services Administration, and Adam Clater, the Chief Cloud Architect for Red Hat's North American Public Sector. Now, the first segment, we really focused on cloud and where it fits in with data center. I think one other piece to this that we should start off this segment is really around the strategy of moving to the cloud. People or agencies can pick their data center consolidation, and it's not necessarily a cloud. You can reduce square feet. You can create maybe an internal kind of managed service type of cloud, but is it really the quote-unquote cloud? So, Steve, let me start with you over at GSA. You guys have been one of the leaders, I guess, moving to the cloud. Email, I think you guys have the use of the Google Docs and others. So give me a sense of where does the strategy fit in from a data center / cloud?
So I think, for us, data center consolidation has been very much an enabler and a tool for cloud adoption, not only kind of narrowly focused on cloud, but the overall IT strategy. So if you think about cloud, service delivery models, if you think about exiting outdated technologies, if you think about modular development, it's really been an opportunity, using consolidation as an initiation point to start take a holistic look at all those areas. And again, in terms of there's a lot of discussion in the industry about legacy IT. We have a wide variety of architectures. As we consolidate from a data center perspective, gives us a chance to really take a fresh look at, again, alignment, right? Cloud alignment. Basic fundamental things like virtualization, right? You can take advantage of that. Also, based on the architectural complexity, based on the components that are utilized, how do you best decouple and how do you move away from these monolithic architectures? So I would say it's really been a tool and enabler for us to look at all of that. Again, the outputs and outcomes vary based on the technology stack, how, what are some of the complexities around that? So it could be a crawl, walk, run. There could be a clear fit where we could move more rapidly. An intermediate step, which we talked a little bit about earlier, could be moving to a shared service data center as an intermediate step, and then kind of, as a secondary step, move to more of a traditional true cloud model.
You brought up a phrase I really like, data center as an enabler, as a tool, and I think that's really where both OMB wants agencies to go, but also when you hear the Government Accountability Office testify saying there's more savings there, and OMB responds with, yeah, but it's not just about savings. Let me turn to someone else on the panel, maybe Pam, around this idea of data center consolidation as an enabler, as a tool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So certainly for the Securities and Exchange Commission, there will need to be a huge cultural shift to move a lot of the sensitive data to the cloud. There will be a lot of processes that continue to run on-prem. For example, we have an enterprise data warehouse currently that's on-prem that hosts a lot of our key mission-critical data sets, and so we run analytics and do big data insights on that platform. I think the move there would be, because the one thing that I do want to stress is whatever the strategy is, it's not an IT strategy, it's a business strategy. And one of the things that you have to do is sit down with your business partners and think through what makes sense to move from not just a data perspective, but a workflow perspective, and how the business will interact with that data. So we're sitting down with business now. They're partnering with us on this strategy, but we won't be entirely out of the data center business for quite some time because of the way the business uses the data and how that data is being used. Again, as I said before, network performance, and when you are ingesting 3 or 4 petabyte data sets from high-frequency trade on a daily basis, and how you interact with that data and the performance of that data are things that we're piloting now and we're testing out. So for us, it's more of a deliberative. We're taking a more pragmatic approach. There's something clearly that can go to the cloud. Public filings through our EDGAR system we put on the cloud, they're searchable to the public. Those types of things are easy to do. But when we talk about collaboration, it's another one that's easy to do. SharePoint, for example, is something that we probably could move to the cloud fairly quickly. But when we're talking about mission-critical applications, a lot of those are homegrown. They're custom developed for the organization. Then those are longer poles in the tent in terms of how we move to the cloud.
And I think your point of you'll always be in the data center business to a certain extent. Joe, I know at the Justice Department, you guys are probably view very similar.
Well, absolutely. We have law enforcement information, which is kind of special, a lot of legal stuff. But we also receive information, data from all the other departments and agencies in the federal government. IRS tax data that has to be treated specially, HIPAA data from HHS, and so we have to factor all that in, and that's what drives us to our hybrid model. I very much believe that we're going to be in the data center business as well for the long term, but we want to take advantage of public and commercial cloud offerings. Security, speed, cost efficiency, those are all things that really factor into our strategy. What we're trying to do is move, though, the things that make more sense to a commercial cloud, FSMA low, maybe moderate impact systems, but things that are mission essential systems, FSMA high systems, we probably want to keep those things to a large degree inside our data centers. One of the things we're also trying to do is synchronize our transitions to either our core data centers or to commercial facilities with recap. So instead of buying a new equipment and keeping it in the same location, that's the time, and that's how we built our strategy is recap into another facility, another center. So instead of buying new in the old, buy new in the new place. And we want to leverage our buying power to the maximum extent, which means, again, and there's a lot of different cloud vehicles out there, but how do we do that from a department perspective, aggregating our buying power, and really want to make sure that we have defined exit strategies. So who owns the data, records management is important in the department. So these are all things that factor in, and I think also how are we going to help the various owners of these systems move, because there's sometimes a lot of prep work that has to go into making that happen.
Adam, it's interesting when you heard Pam and Joe and Steve all talk very similarly about the mission side, the business side, and as Pam said, that there's certain things will always stay in a data center that's owned by, in your case, the SEC, or in Joe's case, the Justice Department. Are you hearing very similar things from other federal clients? Is that part of this kind of crawl, walk, run, as Steve put it?
Yeah, I think that hybrid is definitely the path forward for most federal, and even if you look at state, local, and even a lot of commercial places, right? I think that hybrid is definitely the future. I think where we need to get to, though, is as a business owner, when I begin to have an idea and I want to start to build an application, today I have to stop and say, well, is this application going to live in my data center? Is this going to live in a cloud? Is it going to move to a cloud? There's this decision matrix that our customers are having to go through right now. And I think our goal as technologists is to get to a point where our customers can just begin to build applications, and we'll manage where they go and how they get there, right? So that means you need a lot of consistency between your cloud and between the offering that you have on premise and even the cloud that you're going to go to. So, there was a mention of exit strategies, right? So you need to make sure you're not getting too locked into any single cloud provider by relying too heavily on what they provide, and making sure that the software decisions that you're making in your data center today are going to translate into those clouds as you move into them.
Pam.
I just want to say that when we talk about a cloud strategy, again, a lot of folks look at that from a technical perspective. There are three pieces that go with that. One is the acquisition strategy, which would address the exit strategy. But the other thing is interoperability, right? So if you are not in a single cloud provider and you have multiple cloud solutions, those are agreements that need to be negotiated at the very beginning with your acquisition strategy, as well as exit. How do you migrate data? Who's responsible for it? We own the data, but if we want to move to another cloud provider, what is the process for that? That needs to be negotiated up front. The other thing is there's a governance piece that has to be a part of this. And that's where the business comes in when we sit at the table and make those decisions in terms of what goes in the cloud, what stays on-prem, is this a process that we want to run in the cloud, those types of things. So the agency, at the executive level, has to put together a governance piece that goes with that. And then the third piece is the human capital strategy, because a lot of jobs are going to transform with this strategy. And I'm not sure government agencies today are positioned or are sitting with the skill set that they're going to need to move aggressively to the cloud. So we're going to have to bring along the human capital piece of that as well.
And it tags back. I want to go to Michelle real quick, but it tags back to, I think, something you said earlier was the culture change.
Yep,
Again,
absolutely.
Joe, how long have you been doing this? How many times have you heard it goes back to the culture change? Michelle, at the State Department, react a little bit to what you've heard.
Sure, yeah. I mean, at the State Department, I agree with the whole business aspect of it. In fact, at the State Department, I mean, this is another area where we are just getting our legs and feet under us in terms of a controlled move to the cloud. But we've implemented recently our cloud computing policy, and we stood up a cloud computing governance board to help streamline adoption across the department. We know that there are folks who have already moved out there, but any new or existing cloud user must go through our cloud computing governance board, and that board is made up of representatives from across the department, from areas like acquisitions, from legal, privacy, and of course information assurance. But we're really taking a customer-centric approach. We want to really, help our customers all along the way, in their journey to the cloud, to the extent that we can. And we're hoping that by reaching out to our global workforce, we can gain a better insight into the requirements that we need to be thinking about when we implement our cloud solutions, and just ensuring that the key thing is protecting the data, but we want to make sure that we can leverage those requirements to gain some economies of scale and do some strategic sourcing, and things of that nature. But we're using our cloud computing governance board and our customer centric focus to handle that sort of cultural shift. But our data center strategy is supporting that. As I said, as we do consolidation, we're using a cloud-first approach before we determine where the systems that live in that data center that we're consolidating, are they cloud computing candidates, or do they need to move into a DOS-managed data center? We're using the modular data center technology, which gives us much more flexibility, right? We can expand and contract our data center resources depending upon the needs of the department. So as systems owners move low and moderate systems to the cloud, we have much more flexibility in that environment than we would in a traditional brick and mortar facility. And then one other thing, the virtualization first policy that we've implemented also will help us, when it comes to moving workload from our DOS data center out into the cloud. Those are some of the ways that our data center strategy is facilitating our move to the cloud.
Steve?
Just wanted to weigh in on the hybrid approach. I think the hybrid approach is the right approach. Even in a traditional data center setting, I think it's important to continue leveraging some of the same technologies and approaches that leverage cloud. So, for example, if we have systems and applications that aren't viable candidates based on sensitivity and cybersecurity requirements, we should still optimize to the extent possible, using metering, using virtualization, using virtualization not only at the server layer but at the storage network layer. So even if we distinguish between kind of physical traditional data center versus cloud, I think within that perimeter we should still attempt to leverage as much of the technologies that enable the CSPs.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. I think, ideally our commercial cloud providers and even our, interagency cloud providers should be looked to as the most highly optimized data centers in industry, right? We would be fools not to then look to them to take some of the lessons and tools that they've learned and leveraged and implement those in our own data center. So you can absolutely reap great benefits by just looking at what they're doing in those clouds and bringing some of that technology in-house.
I want to pull on the string that you said, Adam, benefits. As the agencies are moving to the cloud, we've talked a lot about the cost benefit, which when I talk to enough CIOs, they come back and say, yeah, it may not really be that much of a cost benefit, maybe a little bit. Like Steve, for instance, at GSA, you guys have when data center consolidation has led to cost savings. Joe, I think you mentioned the same thing. Pam, I'm sure you guys have seen cost savings, but really the end result is what now? The benefit of what from a data center consolidation? Jump in, Michelle.
Well, so at the State Department, I mean, a few of the benefits that we're seeing, I mean, we're a global organization, so obviously, as you mentioned, collaboration is an easy thing to do in the cloud, but being able to communicate our post users, their family members, as well as our other government agencies. I mean, we're in multiple countries and collaborate with multiple agencies all around the world every day, and so using the cloud, having that cloud technology is going to help us enhance our productivity, but also from a network security perspective, right? We're able to segment our network so that we can protect our sensitive and high-value assets from the vulnerabilities created by internet traffic in our environments. And so those are a couple of ways, and not to mention we can develop cloud-based solutions much more quickly that have the agility to scale up and down in system resources and network bandwidth depending upon the needs of the workload. So those are just a few of the benefits that we see in store for us at State
Joe.
Department.
I was just going to add the same thing about the agility, the elasticity, the additional security, because you're concentrating your resources in certain areas, the business continuity, and I just think that maybe reduced operations. Adam was talking about automation, standardization. So there's huge benefits of moving to these hybrid cloud models beyond just the cost reduction.
Adam, let me ask you this: when agencies or your clients are moving there, how long does it take for them to see the benefits? I know everyone's a little different, but generally speaking, I mean, do they see costs first? They see standards first?
So
Yes.
Of course it depends, right? I think that there's again sort of taking the lessons inside into your data center is going to help you move into that data center. So it depends on what you've done in-house first, or whether you're trying to do a net new application development. If it's pure net new application, I think we all know we can really spin that up pretty quickly, right? And whereas in a traditional data center, it might have taken 30, 60, 90 days, even just to get a virtual machine, we can now enable people to work in these commercial cloud providers much, much faster. So I think from a time to market perspective, there's a huge opportunity there. But again, caution, a little bit of caution, right? Let's make sure that what we're doing, we can move or bring back, or there's a lot of portability in what we're building.
And I think so much of that's been talked about time and again, but I think it's a reminder that agencies sometimes you have to bring in the business side and the acquisition side. And Michelle was going to throw you a curveball in Fatara, but since we're going to take a break, you don't get my curveball. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the panel discussion, Raising the Bar on Government IT with using Hybrid Cloud, sponsored by Red Hat on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.